Hello race fans, Keith Collentine here, taking our first look at the new Miami International Autodrome in F1 22. Now, this year's edition of the official F1 game isn't due out until July, but we recently had the opportunity to play a preview version of the game, and so as you can see, these are not the finished and polished graphics, but the latest addition to the championship calendar has been built in the game, and in this video we'll give you our first impressions of it. Now, the track is not what the Miami Grand Prix organisers had in mind when they first tried to get this race off the ground a few years ago, not long after Liberty Media took over Formula One. They made several attempts to put on a street race in the area overlooking Biscayne Bay, but despite going through several different iterations of the design, it was thwarted by local opposition. So instead, they've laid out a temporary course around the NFL stadium where the Miami Dolphins play, a few miles up the road from the originally chosen site for the track. So as a result, what we're looking at here is a circuit that's a little bit like Jeddah in Saudi Arabia in that it's a temporary track, but it's not a street circuit in the true sense of the word using existing roads. It is also another really fast circuit, not quite as quick as Jeddah, but we're still going to be looking at average lap speeds in the 220 to 230 km/h area. So to put that into perspective, that's not far away from Imola, where the cars were racing at a couple of weeks ago. It's a 5.4 km circuit with 19 corners. This that we're looking at the moment is the last braking point really on the track, and then you've got a couple of quick turns which bring the cars back towards the main start-finish area. Now, I will hold my hands up and admit to being far from the best player on the official Formula 1 game, and I've only had a few laps to familiarise myself with the new circuit, but nonetheless, let's take a quick look at it. This is the turns 1, 2 and 3 complex. Turn 1, a fairly tight right-hander. It's pretty quick though, and generally around, particularly the first part of the track, it is quite narrow. There's a quick sequence of bends here, turns 4, 5 and 6, and then into 7 where we have the already notorious fake marina on the inside, but turn 7 into 8 is a vital point of the circuit because it leads into this part you're looking at now, which is very, very quick, a likely overtaking opportunity. It's this point on the track that has the strongest overtures of Jeddah, very, very quick, slightly obscured sightlines perhaps around some of the quicker corners towards the end, but then it slows right down with a sharp left-hander at turn 11, this long right-hander turn 12 with the stands on the outside, and then a very, very slow chicane at turns 14 and 15. As you can see, it took me a few goes to get that one right. At this point on the circuit, the cars are weaving underneath a freeway intersection, not unlike they do at the first couple of corners at Singapore. And that leads them onto another very, very long acceleration zone, but unlike the earlier one, this one is a straight line which takes the cars down to turn 17, that sharp hairpin left-hander, and then you've just got turns 18 and 19 with the pit entry on the driver's right-hand side, bringing them back round to the start-finish line. So let's take a look at this on the onboard. Well, that's one of my first attempts at getting around the Miami International Autodrome. Far better and more polished efforts to come this weekend, no doubt. So, what's the verdict on the newest addition to the Formula One calendar? On balance, it's a pretty good track to drive. The first sector actually feels quite a bit like a permanent layout, albeit with quite a lot of asphalt runoff. It's pretty quick and enjoyable to drive. The original design for part of this, particularly around turn 1, was a lot slower. I definitely prefer the configuration that they've gone for here. The two long acceleration zones show that Formula One has learned the lessons of tracks like Baku and Jeddah, and that Formula One cars need an awful lot of distance to be able to slipstream and race each other. Of course, this is going to be taken to extremes at Las Vegas next year. And then you've got that slow sequence from turns 11 to 16. That's really quite narrow in places, particularly that turn 14 and 15 chicane, which I think is a likely trouble spot. On paper, I think Miami could produce some really good racing. It certainly did in the game, but in reality, a lot of that is going to come down to how much grip the drivers get from the new asphalt. We've seen when new or resurfaced tracks have been added to the calendar in recent years, we can get real variety in terms of the quality of racing we get and how much grip we get from new asphalt. So it could be a bit hit and miss in terms of how well that turns out. And while it might not have the same aesthetic appeal of a race along Biscayne Bay, none of those track layouts looked especially exciting, and in that respect, F1 may actually benefit from the race being relocated. I look forward to finding out this weekend. Thanks very much for watching. Follow racefans.net on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram for the latest from us, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more of our videos.